Welcome to another 902 Gaming set review for Phyrexia All-Will-Be-One. In this video, I'm going to go over the white cards in this set. And first up, we have the Eternal Wanderer. 6 mana Planeswalker, 5 loyalty, +1. This has the static ability of no more than one creature can attack the Eternal Wanderer each combat. That makes this a Planeswalker that will be very, very hard to kill. +1, exile up to one target artifact or creature. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of that player's next end step. So this can exile a blocker, basically, for +1. You can blink any of your prototype creatures. There's a lot of effects that you can do with this +1. The fact that it's on a Planeswalker, and the fact that it's reusable, that's one of the downsides of playing the prototypes. You need to have the spells, and then once they're done, you can't blink any of the other ones that you might draw. Then you have a 0. You create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with double strike. That is crazy. That is an immensely, immensely powerful blocker. And then we have -4. For each player, choose a creature that player controls. Each player sacrifices all creatures they control not chosen this way. So one of the things when I first read this card, I read it as each player chooses a creature they control, and then they sacrifice the rest of them. That really wasn't that great because your opponent could just keep their Titan of Industry, and you keep, you have one creature out. You have your 2/2 samurai creature token with double strike, and they basically, you get to destroy everything else. But when I reread this card and it says you choose, so when I activate this, I choose a creature that player controls, and then they sacrifice the rest. So I get to force them to keep a 1/1 token while I keep the Titan of Industry and then destroy the rest of them. One of the reasons why I did put it on this list was because of that. I thought this card, I was like, oh, you'll never -4 this. Like, that's terrible. Like, this will never see play. Then when I reread it, I realized, like, oh, you choose. So that's why I made the list. I don't know if really anybody's talking about it, but I think it's a very, very strong Planeswalker. But yeah, I think it's a great card. I think it might even replace Farewell in the decks that play Farewell right now. It's hard to say. It depends on how many, huge enchantment decks or whatever start becoming more the norm. Then Farewell will stay, and this probably won't see that much play. Next up, we have Kemba Ka Enduring. I don't think I've seen anybody talk about this card, and I'm surprised. But it could be for a specific reason. So this is a 2 mana 2/2 legendary creature, cat cleric. Whenever Kemba enters the battlefield or another cat enters the battlefield under your control, you can attach up to one target equipment you control to that creature. Equipped creatures you control get +1/+1, and for 5 mana, you can start making a whole bunch of 2/2 white creature tokens. And the thing that's surprising me about this card, that's why I don't know why it's not being talked about, is the fact that any of the 4 Meriden cards in this set immediately just automatically attach to this card. Or if you create it, you spend 5 mana, create a 2/2, you automatically attach as well. A lot of people haven't thought of the equipment creatures either that were in Kamigawa. There's a lot of them. You have the one that gives haste, you have one that gives double strike. There's so many, like +1/+1 and double strike, or just double strike in general. And a lot of those ones don't have their equip costs are a bit too high, and this guy just makes them free, and also gives itself +1/+1. So I think this card, if equipment sees play at all, if there's a deck, will revolve around this one and probably another card. So I think this guy's just a house, just a 2 mana house for that deck. And I'm surprised nobody's really talking about it. I mean, I know there's other, you have Elish Norn and Mondrak and a whole bunch of other different sweet stuff in white, but this is one of those cards I think that people sort of not really paying attention to because there's other sweet things going on. And then next up, I'm going to talk about a card that everybody is dismissing quite a bit. And that card is Skrell's Hive. 2 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexia Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1. And this creature can't block. And it also has Corrupted. As long as the opponent has 3 or more poison counters, which we've said before, getting to Corrupted with this set, it's not going to be that hard. You do have to play cards basically only from this set, it's not going to be very, very difficult to get the corrupted. Anyways, so as corrupted, as long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures you control with toxic have lifelink. So that last little line of text there is pretty important. People have been dismissing this because you create a 1/1 creature that can't block. We've had cards like this before, and they never saw play. Everyone was hyped about them. It's like, oh, it's the new Bitter Blossom. I remember the name before actually looking it up. We had Bitter Blossom before. It was a 1/1 flyer that those creatures could block. But the fact that I think the last one we had was it created like it had like a mass 1 or something like that, where you created a token and then it just one token kept getting bigger and bigger. That's not the same as creating multiple creatures every single turn. Like you create one creature, you create another creature the next turn, another creature the next turn. At 2 mana, being able to create a 1/1 creature every single turn, I think is really, really good, even if those creatures can't block. Because corrupted, I don't think will be a very difficult thing for decks to achieve. Having all of those 1/1 creatures also have lifelink is essentially very close to them being able to block, because you basically gain a bunch of the life back. But I still think this card is probably the best version of not the best version of Bitter Blossom. Bitter Blossom is the best version of Bitter Blossom, but the best that we've seen since Bitter Blossom. So I think I'm not 100% sure it will see play, but I still think it's better than people think. It is, and that's why it's on this list here. And then next up we have Skrelv Defector Might. 1 mana, 1/1, toxic 1. Skrelv cannot block. You pay Phyrexian white, so 1 white or 2 life. Tap, choose a color. Another target creature you control gains toxic 1 and hexproof from that color until end of turn. It can't be blocked by creatures of that color this turn. So essentially what we have is a legendary Mother of Runes that can't block. And I think it's another target creature. I think Mother of Runes is also another target creature. But you get to pay with it with 2 life. And the fact that unlike Unctus, who I had mentioned in my blue set review, the last ability was 1 blue or 2 life, the Phyrexian blue. It can only be activated as a sorcery. And thankfully, this card does not say it can only be activated as a sorcery, because that would make it absolutely terrible. You can't respond to a removal spell or something like that. And this card will see play just based on the fact that it's a Mother of Runes and white and soldiers and all stuff like that. It doesn't need to block. I don't think Mother of Runes ever blocked. I think it was just there to protect other creatures, basically just a hexproof spell on a stick. And I think it will see play just because of that. I don't really see too many people talking about that, or about this card. So next up on my list here for white cards is Annex Sentry. 3 mana, 1/4, toxic 1. When it enters the battlefield, exile target artifact or creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or less. I wanted to mention this one because it's essentially like a Brutal Cathar that can hit creatures with a specific mana value that isn't as easily killable as Brutal Cathar is. Like one of the issues with Brutal Cathar is it's only a 2/2. 3 mana 2/2 is not the best. It's almost every single removal spell kills it. I still think it sees play, definitely. And this could potentially be like Brutal Cathar 4 and 5, or 5 and 6 even. It also has toxic, which is good. But it can just get rid of any creature. Now, it can't get rid of any creature, but any creature with a mana value 3 or less. And generally, when you're playing Brutal Cathar, you're trying to tempo your opponent. So if they play something on 2, you play Brutal Cathar on 3, get their 2-drop. This is essentially the same thing, except it's a bit harder to kill. So again, it's just one of those cards that it just ends up being a role player, I think. Next up, we have Ossification. So 2 mana enchantment. Enchant basic land you control. When Ossification enters the battlefield, exile target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls until Ossification leaves the battlefield. This is a fantastic removal spell for white. Fateful Absence was 2 mana, and your opponent got to get a clue token. This one has nothing. It just sits around and keeps that creature exiled until this leaves play. The downside is is it's probably only playable in mono white, just because it's asked to enchant a basic land. If it was plains, it would probably, if it said enchant to plains you control, then it would probably see more play. I think this was kind of like Chain to the Rocks, which is 1 white, and you have to enchant a mountain, and then you get to exile a creature. This is 2 mana, any basic land, and you get a creature or a planeswalker. So definitely going to see play. I think it's one of the best removal spells. Again, the set is full of so many good removal spells. I think this will definitely see play, especially in mono white. And one of the last cards I wanted to talk about in white was Crawling Chorus. Now, I think the art on this card is absolutely phenomenal. I think it is one of the most trippy pieces of art they've had on a Magic card in quite a long time. But it's a 1 mana, 1/1, toxic 1. Whenever it dies, you get a 1/1 Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with toxic 1, and this creature can't block. So essentially, this is like we've seen cards like this before, where it's a 1 mana, 1/1, and then whenever it dies, you get another, basically a copy of it. Now, I think the last one that we had gave you a 1/1 Flying Spirit. Or, sorry, maybe the best one had the 1/1 Flying Spirit. I think there's one in the set in standard right now that's 1 mana, and you just get a 1/1 Spirit. This is a bit better because it has toxic. Now, the token can't block, but I think that's fine. I think it's just going to be, like I said, I think if like some type of sacrifice deck, or every set that comes out, people are always looking to play aristocrats. That's what I was trying to think of. Like, we used to have Cartel Aristocrat, so we're always looking at aristocrats again. Basically, sacrifice creature to get a small amount of value, drain your opponent. So if something like that exists in the standard format, this will probably be part of it. I don't think it's very likely, but I definitely think it's possible. And another card that I wanted to talk about, one last card, I guess, is the Leonine Lightbringer. It's a 3 mana, 3/2 with Ward 2, so it has built-in protection. As long as Leonine Lightbringer is equipped, it gets +1/+1. So if you combine this with Kemba, and it's on curve with Kemba, so when you play Kemba and then the next turn you play this, you have equipment out, you get to attach it to it. So with Kemba, it gets +1/+1. This thing, when it's equipped, it gets +1/+1. So that immediately makes it a 5/4, and then you get whatever ability is on the equipment that it equips. So I think as a 3/2, 3 mana, it's on curve. It's pretty decent stats. It has some built-in protection already. The fact that it's a cat, like I said, it works well with Kemba. So I think, again, if the equipment, we have to think too, like I look at the equipment in this set, and it's all over costed for equip. It's all over costed for the equipment itself, because you also get a 2/2 red rebel creature token with it. But I think you have to look at stuff like Kamigawa with the equipment creatures and stuff. And I think that's where the deck is going to lie, not in these new ones. Even though I think some of the new ones are pretty decent. That's what we have to kind of look at, where your equipment is also creatures as well. All right, so that'll do it for all the white cards that I wanted to talk about. Again, I know there's more in there. These are just the ones I think are not really being talked about, and I just kind of wanted to go over them. Obviously, we have Elesh Norn. I don't think Elesh Norn is going to be a good card in standard, but I'd love to be proven wrong. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the last color red set review in my next video, and have a good one.